All right, hey everybody, what's going on? My name is Cory, and this is Heather Wells, board certified cognitive specialist with Brain Balance Centers. And every week we get a chance to come to you and just bring you a little bit of information to help you in your parenting journey. I'm a brain balance parent, proud brain balance parent, and I have 3 kids at home. And with the situation that we're in right now, we're all stuck at home. I've all of a sudden become a full-time teacher in addition to a full-time, marketer. I have my marketing company, and it's been kind of crazy. So with those jobs and those tasks, can also come a little bit of procrastination, a little bit of avoidance, a little bit of reasons to not do the things that I really need to do, and that can creep in to our kids. And so today we wanted to talk about that subject, and I can't think of anybody better to talk about that with than Heather. So Heather, how you doing today? How you feeling?
I'm good. I'm excited to talk about this because I've been thinking about the parents who already were concerned about task avoidance before the current situation. And now it's kind of an all-day thing that they're dealing with.
It is.
And a lot of times it looks like apathy or laziness. And it really helps when you know what the foundational issues are, because that really informs how to handle it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, for me, it's just so close and top of the mind right now because of everything that I have going on with staying home, as everyone does. But for me, what does it look like? I guess, as we start, I've got a couple notes here. And so from what I understand, it starts with kind of the rumination. Yeah?
It does. Only Alexander, one of the researchers, and they're not alone in this, say that only 18% of what looks like task aversion or procrastination is actually that. So anxiety underlies a whole lot of procrastination. A lot of things that look like anger or resentment, there is some of that there sometimes. But it's kind of like if you've ever been in a fight with your significant other and you're actually hurt, but you act mad, or you're mad and you cry, where the actual emotion of what comes out doesn't quite match up. So with anxiety, a lot of people think about that being worrying about the future, and that is definitely an element. But when it comes to procrastination, there are many studies that show that it is about ruminating over the past. And that is tied both to the anxiety procrastination link, as well as the depression procrastination link. And a lot of kids have both anxiety and depression. But that's a flexible thinking situation too, which is one of our executive functions, where I can problem solve and think of many paths to a goal. All of the organization skills that we need, especially as we get older and on throughout our entire lives. But if I am just stuck in one mode of thinking and you can't get me off that track, it's good to stay on track. It's not good if you are glued to a certain track. And that rumination can be, I'm bad at this. It can be even worse than that. It can be very much internalized, like, I'm stupid, I can't do this. It could be much more where it's associated with their identity, or they just have a bad attitude. I don't like this class. The teacher doesn't like me. They get something in their mind. Every time I get a project, it's terrible and I can't do it, and da-da-da. And that is one of the biggest things that leads to the procrastination. And so some really good things to do with that. Number one, we have to get to the root. Why are they having anxiety in the first place? And we know that self-regulation and emotional regulation, being able to handle the plethora of emotions that human beings have, is part of that. And that includes the negative emotions. A lot of our kids, where they seem to be stuck in negative, sometimes more than positive. But we need those negative emotions too. If I feel guilty, maybe I did something wrong that I need to set right. If I'm bored, maybe that says I'm not on the right track and I need to find something more intrinsic to who I am. But we need to get kids to not be afraid of those emotions and to talk through them, and maybe say, you had an assignment like this before. What's different about this one? Because inflexible thinking is very global. I can't do this task. It might just be 10% of the task. Sometimes we have something we have to take care of But really the part we're dreading is just picking up the phone and making that call. All the rest that falls after that, we know how to do. That happens a lot with kids.
Wow.
So by really digging in and asking questions, and of course they may not know, so you're going to have to kind of listen very carefully to their self-talk or what they're saying out loud to you. It's not fair. You can get so many clues from that so that you know how to kind of kind of wrangle it back into where it needs to be.
And I think as we talk about like things, everything seems like it's massively important, right? And so how do we kind of like prioritize and get through that? You know,
that's
I don't know. I'm asking you. I have no idea.
I was waiting for your answer. That's one of the things with anxiety is that there's a gift in there. I mean, anxiety serves a purpose. All of us have anxiety sometimes. We just don't want it to be a perpetual thing. But sometimes kids who suffer with an anxiety disorder see problems where there aren't any. And so you can't even say, look at what are the 5 main parts of this project, and then what are the steps that it takes to get those 5 main things done. They're all the main things. And so then that messes with my planning and prioritizing. I don't even know how to get started. And so that's task initiation. And it truly is a cognitive skill. I'm so overwhelmed. I don't know where to get started. And then they end up making the project more complicated than the teacher or the parent, if it's a chore or something, even intended for it to be.
Oh yeah. I'm going to look back at my notes here, and I've been taking notes for myself, believe it or not. But, you know, all of my kids have different personalities, and one of them is actually a perfectionist. And my wife is a perfectionist as well, so much so that she will not take action unless things are perfect, right? So when it comes to a hobby or taking action on like a project that she's passionate about, unless things are lined up perfectly, she won't take action. I feel like that one of our kids like is like that. And so how do we deal with the idea of perfection and perfectionism when we're dealing with our kids?
A lot of times when they're kind of stuck in emotions like this, you have to speak to the logical part of their brains. So if they say, well, it's 2:00, the day is shot, I may as well just wait till tomorrow. I mean, kids will say anything. And the problem, not only are they not getting their project done, but deep inside, a lot of times they know that what they're saying is an excuse and they're not really being honest with themselves. You know, they will come up with any number of reasons why there's a reason to wait. And so, we've talked before about creating a calendar about this is what our days look like, but it's really important to teach them to do that with projects so that they know they have kind of these tent poles along the way. And here's the thing, baby steps. We've talked about baby steps to get over anxiety provoking situations. You're not going to go from, most likely, if you do, that's fantastic, but going from complete avoidance, which is just married to anxiety, to, man, now they're sitting here for 45 minutes with no complaints, whistling Dixie. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So, hey, we're going to do a 5-minute dash right now. And it's like no excuses. And as they start getting and even them understanding that starting the planning process and what it looks like, that is progress. Sometimes you have to look for those small things.
Yeah.
And you have to be a little more of for a half second, you need to be maybe a bit of a drill sergeant, and then you want to back off because we don't want them to resent us when we're the ones trying to help them.
Right.
And it's really, by the way, it's really good to get a study buddy or an accountability partner that is not you. You're doing both of you a favor in helping your relationship, because that way you're not the bad guy that's holding me to the fire. But if it's a friend, that's just different. And then we get to hang out and have some free, fun playtime after we work for a while. But having accountability, because a lot of times kids are more accountable without resentment to friends than they are to their parents. It's kind of sad, but it's just reality. And so it kind of keeps you can be the good cop once you kind of get things kind of kicked into gear.
And folks, if you're just tuning in with us, we're talking about, avoidance and procrastination, and how not only that can affect us as parents, but also how it can affect our kids. And, one of those things as I look over at my notes here, we've got the fear of success and the lack of, right? Like, what if I succeed? What will people think of me, right?
That's right. What kind of pressure is going to be on me next time? It's not just about, sometimes I pretend that I'm opting out and I don't care, because what if I actually deep inside think maybe I can do this, and then by doing it I find out I'm wrong, and that takes another beating on their self-esteem. But on the flip side of that, I don't want to stand out. I already stand out in these other ways. And if I do really well this time, it puts even more pressure on me next time, and I already am exploding with pressure. So sometimes it is the fear of success, believe it or not. So that's something that's kind of out of left field you don't think about.
Well, so now that we've talked about that, you know, what do we do to take the next step? I mean, is it, I see you wrote the hashtag to me. It's like, done is better than perfect. Is that the case for everybody? Is that applicable to everyone?
Well, the way you apply it, I mean, I hesitate to say anything is right for everyone. The number one thing you have to do, and we're going to be talking about several sources of procrastination or seeming aversion. So the number one thing you have to do is figure out what the patterns are and what is their reason. And it may be overlapping. There likely can be more than one, because the bad thing about this is it's a vicious cycle. The more I avoid, I have that temporary pleasure relief. But kids are not thinking about their future selves. It's immediate gratification. We live in an immediate gratification society.
Totally.
I feel uncomfortable about doing this, and so I'm just going to avoid it, and that makes me feel more peaceful in this moment. Yeah. But our brain has a need for completion, just like it with anything. I need to bring closure to this. How many times have you heard somebody say that?
Yeah. Or like, you know, and I'm gonna just give a shout out to Darla here. So Darla Emerson, she commented. She said, "Hey, well said." She said, "It's very timely. I have some high school students that are frozen with anxiety." And I take myself back to high school. I mean, we're talking about decades and decades ago. But, you know, there's that feeling that you have a test coming up, okay? And the test is coming and you know you have to study for it, but yet you wait until the night before and you stay up all night cramming. And that pit in your stomach doesn't really go away for that week that you've procrastinated. Like you're saying, it's temporary. Yeah,
that's right. And when we can help kids, we kind of bring the spotlight to how they actually feel. How much are they actually enjoying these activities they're doing while they're avoiding it, versus once we've nurtured them through completing something and now they have this free time, and how much they enjoy it now. And we may have to ask very specific questions about the level, depending on their age. It might be physical symptoms and just the way anxiety impacts them. Yeah. Headaches or woozy feeling, that knot in your stomach, just not being able to sleep because you know you haven't done it, that kind of thing. Now, some of our kids are just thrilled because they're like, I rushed through this last time and I still got a passing grade, so this works. And so then that becomes their mantra is, I work better under pressure, even though, but then they're not learning to plan and organize and pay attention to details and the big picture. They're losing a lot of learning opportunities, and it's not going to be their best work. But there are apps you can get where you take a picture of your child and it fast forwards years, and that is their future self. There is something about making that tangible. There have been tons of studies done on this. You could look up Dr. Shane Lopez, Ripple of Hope, on YouTube, and he talks about the studies that show when you introduce kids to their future selves, they're much kinder to that person than when they've never thought about it before. So even doing things like that where it's more tangible for some of these kids who have difficulty in the abstract is very helpful too.
Okay, and I'm going to put, you said Dr. Shane Lopez, is it Shane?
It is, yes.
Okay, Shane Lopez, Ripple of Hope on YouTube. I'm going to put that in the comments, everybody, just in case you're wondering. Heather drops these like knowledge bombs every now and then, and I'm like, wait, I got to write that down. Okay, cool. So we talked about being intentional and kind of talking about the feeling of finishing the task. But I think we can elaborate on that a little bit more. To me, is that like checking it off? Like there's some power in the check.
There is. One thing I want to caution you on is that if kids have difficulty with mental schemas that you've heard me talk about before, the big picture, so then they don't know how the details go together. If you write the list of things for them to do without giving them context and teaching them how we got there, doing it with them, all they see is the details. They still don't get the big picture.
Right.
But do that process with them. And then, yes, celebrate those small victories and have a visual timer. Visual timers are so underestimated. There's a lot of research that it is better than a clock because a visual timer gives them a visual and they see time winding down on this is how long this dash is lasting until I get a break. And it needs to be a movement break, not something that is going to feed their brain more instant gratification like video games.
Yeah, no video games. Come on, give me a break. That's it.
Yeah. And by the way, if you're in the initial stages, we want to get kids past perfectionism. You are not the sum of what you do. You are who you are. You know, the whole sense of identity you hear me talk about all the time. But in the initial stages, when we're meeting kids where they are, and Rome wasn't built in a day, you're not going to get them over perfectionism in one day. So you can even say, we're going to strive for better than perfect, and better than perfect is doing our best and getting it done on time without rushing. And that way you're speaking their language while we continue to work on the emotional development to where we get them out of that perfectionism and they're not trying to earn approval.
I love that. I love that. Let's talk about the clean slate.
That's extremely important. So it's going to be baby steps. Usually you're going to want to pick just one or two of these tips at a time that apply to your child. Yeah. We don't roll out the whole thing, and everybody has to be patient, but we always, I just said the word always. I'm just about to say to not use that word. when you're talking with kids, we definitely don't want to say things like, you always do this. You never finish on time. Because this is day one of a brand new day. You have new tips. You have new knowledge up your sleeve. And I think it's really important to have a very purposeful conversation about that. You know what? I learned some stuff about how I can help you better. And I wish I'd known this sooner, buddy. So, and then talk through, really have open conversation. We are wiping the slate clean. This is really important because y'all have heard me talk about the guard dog of the brain. You've heard me talk about the hippocampus, which is memory. The parahippocampus, that haunts kids. They keep remembering what they used to do. And so if we do anything that feeds into that, we're not going to be able to break that cycle. And I know that's kind of pressure on the parents. This is all maybe new ways of thinking. And if you're going to slip up too, and just like we want our kids to give themselves grace, we got to.
Barbara just says, I love that saying.
Hi, Barbara. We have to give ourselves grace. And there are studies that even show some parents, and it makes sense. They've asked me, if I talk to them about forgiveness, does that mean they're going to be even more lax? It doesn't seem like they've cared in the past, and now we're telling them to show self-compassion. Right. Research shows the exact opposite. When kids start giving themselves self-compassion, and they don't have to be perfect. We're human beings. We are not perfect beings. Nobody is. Yeah. It actually increases their effort. It does not make them more lax. There are numerous studies about that.
Yeah, and you're kind of transitioning into the self-compassion there. And did you mention the meta-awareness and the self-talk? Because I think that's an important thing. I don't want to forget.
It is. Yeah, because one of our critical thinking skills is called metacognition. I know what I know, and I also am able to link pieces of information together. So, hey, I went on a trip, or I read a book that reminds me of what we're talking about now, and I bring in that background knowledge, and it just deepens the learning. But that is not just about what I learned in a book or from a vacation. It is also meta-awareness. A lot of these kids are in such a rut of thinking negative thoughts about themselves, they don't even know they're doing it anymore. I have to do this. I can't do this. I hate doing this. And by this even spirals so much to the point that kids start avoiding doing things that they actually like doing because of the weird chemical release. You can get these obsessions and compulsions that just feed on themselves, and it becomes more and more and more aversion. The more you avert, the more you avert. So it's very, and that's really good for journaling. It's very good for conversations in a no judgment zone. Tone of voice, facial expressions are so important during this, and depending on their age and how independent they can be. But if they can't come up with those answers, how are you, why is this frustrating you so much? It's okay that it is. We give them permission for feeling it. It's okay that it is. But if you can help me understand why you're feeling this way right now, I just want to see if there's anything I can do to help you and support you, because I know this is really tough right now. And if they can't come up with anything, you be really mindful of the stuff you're hearing them say or the behaviors, and then you can just write some of those things down and say, does any of this sound familiar? Does this ring a bell with you? Does this resonate with you? And you're kind of helping bring that awareness. We can't change something we're not aware of.
No. As we continue to talk about, self-awareness, self-compassion, I want to kind of transition into the self-regulation and the craving, the distraction, right? So there's boredom, is the task challenging enough? And I know these are big bullets, so we need to kind of debrief all of these, but you want to start with boredom and talk about that?
Yes, there are a lot of studies. There was one study, in fact, where the researchers found that in these secondary level students, the number one reason they were procrastinating is because they were bored. And this is a very understandable source of frustration for both teachers and parents, and the kids, by the way. But we have a lot of kids, we all have strengths and weaknesses. And a lot of these kids, they're in gifted programs, twice exceptional, areas of tremendous strength. And then they have their areas of struggle. We all do. It's just, degrees. But it can be that the task is not challenging enough for them. What can we do to up the ante and get their buy-in? What can we, if you're just getting ready for a test, go out and play catch with them. Sensory motor movement, if they don't enjoy doing that. Let me punish you more right now. But getting movement while you do it, go for a walk and be asking them the questions that you've been practicing with them. But what can you do to make it more enjoyable for them? And as they're growing this sense of self, how can we make this assignment mean more to them? They may not, connecting the dots, if they may not know that, hey, the way you are intricately putting this science project together, do you realize how much that's going to even help your grip of the baseball, your baseball pitcher or something? They care about that. And all of a sudden they have a more internal reason for doing it. And so we need to know who our kids are. We need to nurture that so they know who they are, and make some part of that assignment really resonate with the deepest part of what they care about. What are they passionate about? What is novel? What is interesting to them? Intrinsic motivation is so important. And without that, we can't get commitment. And the reason commitment, not compliance, do this because I said so, we want to get away from that as much as possible. We know there's truth to that. And there's just going to, I think, organically be plenty of that in most places, because, kids have a lot of rules for us. We all do. We all have rules we have to live by. But what are the opportunities where it becomes about agency, and I'm doing it because I want to, and not just because you told me to, and not just because I have to do this to pass the class. And so commitment is so powerful. Everybody knows that's a good word, right? But the reason it's so powerful is I can be in this downward spiral of self-hate because I always do this. I procrastinate. I'm bad at everything. I'm stupid. I'm not going to be able to do it. Everything stinks. You get commitment by making it resonate with them. Guess what? You just flipped the switch and made the spiral start falling down.
Right.
Commitment will override anger, passive aggressiveness, manipulation. It doesn't mean it's going to happen in one fell swoop, but once that becomes more of a way of life, commitment is an ingredient that can start just slaying that brick wall.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. Is the task challenging enough? Yeah. Is that something we need to cover? I mean, are our kids feeling truly challenged? Do they know if they're challenged? I mean, we're talking about, I'm saying kids, but there's a wide range here of age.
Right. Yes. And I mentioned this the other day, Todd Kashdan's book, The Upside of Your Dark Side. And that sounds very ominous, but what he's talking about is really what the healthiest, most whole people, we're going for wholeness. When we pursue happiness, it eludes us. If we think that we can never, our negative. I don't even like calling them negative emotions because our emotions serve a purpose. But when if we lose a loved one, we're going to be sad. If we deny that and there's a denial stage, but if we stay stuck there and let's just sweep this under the carpet, it didn't happen, we're not going to heal from that. Wholeness is the entire realm of all the emotions you feel, your strengths, your weaknesses, and everything. And there are lessons in there that actually make life more meaningful.
Wow.
So, but kids, it's uncomfortable. And that book even talks about the comfort age that really started in the 1980s and 1990s. Economy was flourishing, memory foam mattresses. Let me just speak something and everything comes on and off. And,
Clapper.
Yes. And that's really cool. And there's nothing wrong with that, except if we are sheltering our kids so much that everything has to be comfortable, that it's even important if a child falls. Of course, we're going to make sure they're okay, not in danger, no broken bones. But if we just rush, oh my goodness, are you okay? Are you okay? That just seems loving and nurturing and warm.
Yeah.
But we are actually helicoptering that a bit too much. If kids are in a fight, we don't need to go with their siblings. Let them try to work it out first. If it gets to a certain level, I mean, parental instinct knows, then you break it up. But we have to let kids be in uncomfortable situations. That's how they learn. And so boredom tells me either this is not intrinsic to who I am, which some school assignments aren't going to be. But for adults, am I really in the right career? Do I really want to, marry this person? Whatever it is, those signals, we have to pay attention to them, and not just look for comfort at all times.
The physical space itself is massively important too. I mean, I have you can't see it, but I have a desk here, right? And there's some things behind me. These right here, all of these things. These, there we go, that hand. These right here are all of kind of the things in my life that are important to me. And so I have people ask me like, hey, what's that Mickey in the background, right? And like, I worked, 4 years for Walt Disney, talent casting and entertainment. And so that's a big part of my life, right? And behind there, those are the Iron Man medals, and those mean a lot to me, right? I completed an Iron Man. And so, as we're looking at the study zone for the kids, and we want things that maybe they could look at and make them happy, but we also want it decluttered and we want it nice and clean to kind of like go with their mind. Yeah.
Yes. That's such a great point. There are really in schools, and we want to declutter as much as possible. It's very easy for kids to be overstimulated visually, even if they don't have a diagnosed issue in that arena. Y'all have heard me say before, when we're awake and our eyes are open, 2/3 of the electrical energy of our brain goes to visual perception and processing. These kids are already exhausted. They're in a churn for all these different reasons. And the later in the day, when we think about typical school year and they've already been at school all day and they get home, visual perception becomes more taxing as the day progresses. So decluttering, but having symbolic things, maybe you read a book with them or there's a character that resonates with them and you have something that symbolizes that. It can be a hashtag. It depends on the age of whether it's a physical object or note cards you have that means 1,000 times more than it would to anybody else who walked in your house and saw it. We want to let them help prepare the room because again, that gets their buy-in. We're giving them a voice. They don't have a voice on so many things, not due to anybody's fault, just their kids.
Right.
And so much of life is following rules. So that really empowers them. And if they love the space they're working in, you're already getting the mojo going in the right direction. And all of the social media needs to be off, notifications off, phone on do not disturb if you even trust them to have it in the room, emails closed. The studies showing how sometimes people even think they're being productive, but that instant gratification, ding, okay, I actually can see what that was right now.
Yeah.
I can't, and then as soon as they might get a thought going, now I'm distracted. And see, I'm right. I can't concentrate. I knew I couldn't do it.
And there's, I'm not a doctor here, but, when we start talking about things like dopamine hits, right, that come from those sounds and those notifications, I mean, this is a real thing. These are things that we have to definitely think about,
Yeah, that perpetuates the instant gratification.
Right.
And so the things that they're really wanting to go and play catch with the next door neighbor, and you're going to power through XYZ amount of time, an amount of time that's appropriate for the developmental stage of your child, not their chronological age. And then you can go play. And then that also has a timer.
Yeah.
They need that. And then you're going to come back. And when you sort of work that out in advance, that you're taking away, I don't know what to expect. And then that also can kind of alleviate some of the anxiety too.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Make sure we're covering everything here. Okay, we talked about accountability partners earlier, but I think having a study buddy for your kids, it can be good. I think if they're younger, woohoo, not mine, no way. The 9-year-old does not want to learn from the 11-year-old, even though the 11-year-old is a helper. So they're a little bit too close in age. I don't think that's what we're talking about, right? But if you have a buddy, for me, it was, high school and early college, like having a study buddy was really awesome to not only hold each other accountable, but to motivate and push each other, that motivation was important. Is that kind of what you meant by that bullet point there?
Yes. Yeah. Again, keeping the parents out of it. And we want kids to want to do that because they care about themselves and they have that self-compassion. But you're also teaching social emotional intelligence that they also want to do it to support their friend. They're letting their friend down if they don't follow through on what they said they would do. And they're beating themselves up when they're lying to themselves. Oh, I did it. Did you do your homework? Do you have anything to do? No, I don't. But they're not going to do that with a friend as much. And we're keeping kind of a self-loathing path from sort of happening by doing that and keeping you in that relationship where you're kind of a safe place and not the dictator.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so I want to go back for a second. The reward. Okay, the reward and enjoying their free time and why the project matters, contrast with delay temporary relief. Like, can you talk about that? Like, are we talking about a reward system or are we talking about the actual feeling of accomplishment they have when they're done?
Both.
Okay.
Both.
Okay.
We want to get to a point to where the completion of the task is the reward. And we do that when we get their commitment, when we align it with what they care about for that intrinsic motivation. But all of those things that are detractors, kids are much better about starting to tune in when they know that thing they're wanting to do within limitations that we just talked about already. That's what you get to do on your break, but they're earning it. Some reward punishment stuff is overdone, but when we're having procrastination and distractibility, we're not saying you're going to sit here for 6 hours with no break. You're going to sit here for a developmentally appropriate amount of time, going to do something to recalibrate, let off steam, get some movement, sensory input, whatever, and then you're going to go back to it. That's really important. But again, that goes back to the meta awareness, and they know that they've been eating themselves up inside kind of by this tornado they've created, even though they may blame you. Blame is another thing kids do. I couldn't do this. I was waiting on the teacher. She never told me. I was waiting on you. I need your help. Now, sometimes kids do need our help. And it's a really good idea to try to be available once y'all have a schedule set. If you work and the child gets home a little bit before you and, okay, you eat a snack, go get some, get in your homework clothes, even that kind of resets the brain and gets them, just like, everybody's heard about, not that everybody follows this, you shouldn't watch TV in the bedroom. You should, don't do work in the bedroom, because there really is sort of a brain priming for, this is the area where I rest. This is the area where I work. But just putting on, have that routine worked out that they help you with. This is what time you get up in the morning. You're always going to get dressed, brush your teeth, whatever. You help create those mental schemas and they know what the schedule is. But do look over the home, ask them if they have questions. Don't take their word for it, because a lot of times they'll just say no. Make sure you know about Google Classroom or any apps that the teachers are using. When do you post grades? How often do y'all have study groups? Just be sure you have open communication, not only with your child, but also with teachers. And Todd Cashin, the same professor who wrote that book I just mentioned a few minutes ago, has been doing online teaching for 3 months. And he did a really fantastic blog about all the things he's learned about online teaching. And he changed the expectations for the rest of the year. But at the beginning of each class, he'll be like, what do y'all want to talk about? Is there anything else in your mind? Because he's less concerned. We have to nurture the whole child. We all know that intuitively, but then there might be stress about, we have kids out there stressing. Am I going to have a graduation? I'm missing prom.
Oh yeah.
What happened in my baseball season? Yeah. They're going through a lot, and those are big deals to kids.
Well, I just want to pop Barbara's comment up here. Okay. So Barbara said, with homeschooling going on right now, is it okay to take a break? And I'm sure, Barbara, you meant to not spell like a car break. So I'm going to give you some love there. It's okay. So to break, like take a break and have them go out and jump on a trampoline. Yeah, that's awesome, right?
That's what we want.
Yeah.
And jumping is really good, especially and depending on the level of the child. If you're really wanting to work on some body awareness and equilibrium, it can still be fun, but you can even put X's where you want them to jump right there. There can be times where they jump just everywhere, but depending on what you're working on. But jumping, you're getting sensory input, you're getting motor, you're getting your heart rate up. That's the ideal kind of break.
Perfect. Okay. Let's hit some of these last bullets here, Heather. We've got some things that we have to address with emotional regulation and self-talk. Okay. I'm gonna list them off, and I want you to give me like a super quick, note about each one of them. And then we're gonna bring it home. And guys, if you have any questions, please feel free. We are live right now, obviously. And then if you have any other questions, if you're watching this on the replay, please feel free to drop your comments in, and we will respond to them. Our whole team monitors the comments, and we'll get them over to Heather, and we'll get an answer for you. Okay. So determine the why of avoidance.
That's right. That goes back to what we started with in the beginning, is that you have to know why your child is procrastinating before you know which route to go. A lot of times, the natural, obvious train of thought is like they're having trouble with organization, they're having trouble with time management. That very well may be, and then we need to address those things, not only superficially, but why are they having those? Get to the root. But if it's anxiety, we don't want to work on time management, because it's not actually a time management. It's more of an emotional management and a self-talk management situation. Right.
Okay, so that is the first one. The second one, I'm trying to type them as fast as I can. Defeat rationalizations.
Yes, that is if they can't come up with what their self-talk is, why is this frustrating for you? What kind of messaging do you have going on? Sometimes kids know, sometimes they don't. And so then you might present these, are these resonating with you? So if they're just saying, I can't do it, then you want to use their logic and talk through, do you remember last year when we had an assignment like this? This reminds me. You start showing similarities among those, and then you can really start pinpointing what the actual issues. What's different about this one? Or it's 2:00 today, so I just need to start tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you real quick. We had a senior in high school who had a scholarship for an Ivy League school for the rowing team, and that family came to see us because he was about to lose his scholarship because he was paralyzed with perfectionism. A lot of kids have perfectionism, and it doesn't look that way. That does not mean their rooms aren't a wreck. We can be perfectionistic in certain ways and not in others.
Right.
So he would not turn in a paper that he would get a 94 on because it wasn't going to be 100. So then he would get a 0. That's very all or nothing.
Yeah.
And so you really have to know what those roadblocks are.
Okay. Our next one is learn to deal with uncomfortable emotions. And I think it's okay to have these emotions, and we need to talk our young ones through this. And our older ones, we just need to talk to them about this, right? And experience this together. Yes.
Now, we need the whole plethora of emotions, but that's not the same as saying it's okay if you have an anxiety disorder. We don't care. We're not going to do anything about that. If I have moments of anxiety, but it's not a disorder, that emotions serve me a purpose. But when it's there pervasively, then there's still things to do, but we're not going to tell our child it's okay to always be anxious, because there's something amiss.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Building momentum.
Yep. Baby steps. I mean, if you can't start with 15 minutes, start with 5. If you can't start with 5, start with 1. Help them realize those small victories. You already planned it. You got all the supplies together. You brought home that list from the teacher. Notice those small things so they start noticing them in themselves and realize that is progress. Progress begets progress, just like avoidance begets avoidance.
All right. And one of my favorite ones here is get in touch with your future self.
That's powerful. Ripple of Hope, Shane Lopez, anybody who watches that, you won't regret it. It's 20 minutes. He's one of the best speakers I've ever heard. He, before his untimely passing, was probably the world's most prolific researcher on hope. And by the way, he suffered with depression, and I think that's what fueled his hope research. Same thing with your kids. The challenges they have is also going to be their superpower. We just have to work with them and get them through it.
I love it. Well, Heather, we've talked about everything. I mean, honestly, for me, we have a question coming in from Darla. She says, what is your suggestion for breaking the cycle of doing nothing? She said she has a few students who are struggling with anxiety and she can't seem to break them out of this. Does she maybe suggest that they work in 10-minute increments for the next 3 days? Like what would be something to help them break out of the cycle?
First of all, because I know Darla works with high schoolers, do they know why they're doing it? Because for however many kids you have, there might be a different why. And so the first thing is a conversation. How are you feeling? What are your roadblocks? And even if they can't articulate it exactly, it starts getting you on the right path. And then the strategy used with each one is, okay, is this perfectionism? Is it all or nothing thinking? Is it boredom? Is it rumination? Is it self-esteem? Is it something about the environment that's not working for them?
Right.
And then use those strategies. But I would start with that and then just look for those very small victories initially.
I love it. I love it. Well, folks, this is Heather Wells. She runs Brain Balance Centers in Texas. These Brain Balance Centers are fueled with amazing team and staff. They can't really, serve you in person right now, but, things are slowly starting to change. And the good news is there's a lot of support and a lot of help that they can still give digitally. In fact, there is a brand new digital program by Brain Balance. And there is even a virtual assessment that if you'd like to learn more about, you can email Heather directly. Heather gives her email out to anyone. So I'm just going to say it. It's just hwells@brainbalance.com. I'm going to post it right here. So if you need anything, just reach out to her. And she's literally that kind of person. I know her very well. I've known her for a very long time. And just reach out. Just ask a question. She'll point you in the right direction. She's got a great team behind her to help her.
I do. They're awesome. And I appreciate all of you sharing your time with me. I will check comments, anything that I didn't answer that pops up in your head later.
Amazing. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. We are here every Tuesday and Thursday at 3:30 Central. I can't thank you enough for paying attention. And Fridays at 3:30 Central as well with Dr. Brian Aspie.
Yes.
So make sure you go check that out as well too. All right, everybody. Have a great rest of your Thursday. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.